It's Thursday. Superhero fans, what's up, nerds? All that good stuff. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about the state of superheroes today. We are not doing the MCU version edition tonight. So a little twist right there, a little turning it on its ear, I guess, tonight. That's a thing, right? Turn things on their ear, I guess. Anyways, so we've got some talk about superheroes for you tonight, and so don't miss out. This is the FOMO show. All right, nerds, like I said, my name is, or like I didn't say yet, my name is Dylan. Good God, son, man. I'm all over the place when it comes to these intros.
You're killing me,
That's because I've got so much I'm trying to line up and think about at the same time that I forget what I'm doing. Anyways.
Good. I'm Clint. Hi. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, what's up? Whether you're watching on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and hit the little bell icon so that you know when we drop new videos, when we go live like this, especially when there's very short notice, as per usual, because life. So anyways, yes, thank you for your support, liking, sharing, telling your friends, and commenting, and all that good stuff. That makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. And don't forget to check out the website at www.broken.pictures.com. So, special notes, just stay healthy and take your necessary precautions, all that jazz. I know I've been feeling under the weather for a couple weeks, and but taking a couple different COVID tests, and I'm always negative. So, but now there's one that dodges the tests. So who knows at this point what's what or anything.
Wait,
all I know
there's
is
one that dodges the test.
Yes, there's one that dodges the test. A variant that dodges the test now.
It's learning. Okay,
yeah.
Whatever.
It's a live virus. It does learn.
It does learn.
Self-preservation is like the basic form of desire of life.
All it needs is a computer, and then we have Skynet, and I'm done, Dylan.
It's not that kind of virus, but you do make a valid point. All I know is my head hurts, but we're here. So yeah, stay healthy, do what you need to do, and stay safe, especially out there with the nationwide blizzard or whatever's going on. That's the only reason right now that me and Quinn are not in the same place, because we've both tested negative now. Quinn is finally over his COVID, and I'm still tested negative, obviously. Well, I don't know about obviously. Anyways, that's what it says. And but yeah, nobody's driving around here. There's snow and ice on the ground, and it is not safe to drive. Because, yeah, blizzard, I guess. I don't think.
Oh, but what's it called? Winter storm?
Yeah, winter storm. Severe winter storm. We live in the mountains, northwest Arkansas. Anyways, stay safe wherever you live. Do what you got to do for whatever you got to do. Yeah. And with that, I will pass it off to you.
All right. If you haven't, oh damn. One second. Okay. If you haven't left now, this is your last chance, because this is your spoiler alert. That was weird. In this episode of the FOMO Show, we are going to be talking about a lot of things involving comic books and superhero stuff since like the 50s. If you haven't seen any of that, pause this, go watch all of that, and then come back. You have been warned.
You might be gone a while. We'll sum up. We'll help you out. We'll sum up some stuff. There's a lot to cover. And Quinn is going to pretty much take the lead on this, and I'll probably have comments because it gets me excited, and then I get chatty, and I kind of just take over because ADHD. I don't mean to. I don't mean anything by it. But Quinn is such a gracious co-host and kind person that he puts up with my just talking over him sometimes.
I'm chill 24/7 unless you're my child.
Word.
Because my children I love them, but I think it's because they're too much of me.
Oh, that's yes.
Yeah.
And then like all the things that like frustrate you about yourself, you see them doing it. It's like, stop doing that. Stop doing that.
Oh. Yeah, that. Exactly that. So, on to the show, though.
Yeah. Jump in a hyperdrive and get to where we need to go.
Since World War II, comic books have been a part of American literature and American culture, changing with the ebb and flows of time itself, really. But superhero TV shows and movies also change with the times, but it's hard to articulate it.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what's popular. Like Westerns had their moment, monsters had their moment, and then with the advent of the atomic bomb, sci-fi started, and atomic age started having its moment.
Yep. Space age, everything was in space at one point in time. Same way. So as American culture changes, so does what we watch. But for the longest time, unless you were like in the community itself, comic book movies and comic book shows kind of flew under a bit of a radar. There was a veil that seemed like it was always present. I don't know if it's the same true for you, but I think it was. I think it is. With that being, let me ask you a question, Dylan, and this will spin off from everything going forward. Do you think comic book movies are kind of ruining movies as a whole?
It's the age. It's the question on all filmmakers' minds. I personally, as someone who works in film and someone who wants to be a filmmaker, and I mean, I've made a couple things here and there, nothing of note or anything that I'd like to share with the public, at least. But, I mean, comic books kind of have that negative connotation with certain age groups. I know it was low comedy or lowbrow, seen as that way for a long, long time. It was for children, and there are still definitely some older cats around that still subscribe to that type of thought. And I mean, and there's a certain, I mean, if you look at certain properties, definitely lowbrow. Definitely lowbrow. I mean, Peacemaker is the number one streaming show in the world right now. And definitely lowbrow. But it is smart lowbrow. It's smart lowbrow, which is what I love about James Gunn. But it has been elevated by people like Christopher Nolan, who have taken, and Matt Reeves, who this new Batman film looks very cinematic, and where certain characters and certain properties have been elevated, and even some Marvel movies are like Black Panther, in my opinion, were elevated above their genre, or where they came from, or that whole idea of comic books being for children or lowbrow or not smart or not cinematic or not high art or anything like that. I don't think that comic books are ruining movies. I don't think that comic book movies or shows or anything like that. I don't subscribe to that type of thought. I think that they are. I think that there's always something, and blaming it on what's popular because your thing doesn't do well. Marty, Ridley Scott. I think that's low hanging fruit, and I think that's easy, and I'm not blaming them because I get it. If you've been on top for so long and you've been doing things for a certain way for so long, and the current changes, then it kind of takes you off. I mean, it knocks you off base, and it knocks you out of balance, and it's easy. It's human nature to say, well, that's what it is. It's that big. It's the biggest. It's the gorilla in the room. You know what I mean? It's the biggest thing that I can point at. It's low hanging fruit. I don't think it's a smart thing to say necessarily, because I mean, same thing has been said about horror films.
Yes.
Or whatever else was popular at the time, you know. But if you look at things such as horror films, there are some very excellent horror films, like The Exorcist, things that went above and beyond and became, phenomenon. Like, they are art, and they are very good, and they rise above what they're lumped in with, you know what I mean? There are obviously, in every genre and every medium, there is crappy stuff and all that kind of stuff, and there are stereotypes and all that jazz that things fall into. So anyways, yeah, go ahead.
A couple days ago, we'll start with the bad, then we'll get to the good. A couple days ago, Roland Emmerich, I don't want to say his name right. Roland Emmerich, in an interview, he is the director who directed a lot of disaster movies, like 2012, Independence Day. Those are just the ones I remember.
Which, I mean, that in itself is a pop genre too.
Yeah.
So.
And in the interview, like one of the things he had said was just that, and he said these names specifically. Marvel and Star Wars are kind of ruining the industry just because they've taken it over, and it feels like you can't have original ideas and be successful anymore. But then he went on to go say other things, and like involving Christopher Nolan and how he's great and how he's good at coming up with like these, not crazy, but these innovative ideas for movies and things like that. But that comment there in itself, I mean, comic book movies and shows, you're just bringing to life what has been put on page for a lot of things. But for some of it, like the 2000 Justice League show, there isn't a comic book that show is from. It was just the folks at DC taking those characters and then writing the stories and making it as they went along. They weren't following something that already existed.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you can take these characters and always do something new or reinvent them because they have been for literally the 50s. The very first TV show involving comic books and movie was Superman. And it was the Adventures of Superman. It went for 5 seasons, I think. And in the 60s, it was Batman. In the 70s, a slew of them. Wonder Woman, Hulk, Shazam, Spider-Man, Super Friends, which was where, and then kind of in the 70s, though, is where that notion of this is for kids really started to roll and kick off. Because a lot of it is pretty...
Yeah, well, I mean, Captain America was read by soldiers during the war. Like, I mean, it was easy, you know, easy communication and entertainment for them.
Yep. And in the 80s, you had really 80s TV shows for superheroes weren't like Superman and stuff. It was He-Man, Thundercats, Danger Mouse were the top ones. And then for the move, that's when the movies really started to pick up, which was like Batman, Supergirl, Toxic Avengers, more Superman, Howard the Duck, Swamp Thing, Punisher.
These are all the things that I grew up watching.
Yes, so you're deep in the community, deep in it. And then
like
90s,
I thought Toxic Avenger was like something that nobody had ever heard of. Like when I was a kid, and I was watching that, and I was like, "Why am I watching this? I'm a kid." But still,
I remember the first time I watched it, I was 14. It came on IFC and like late at night, and I watched it and I was like, I don't know what this is, but I like it. I like it.
It was so different than just like the mainstream, like
Superhero stuff.
yeah, exactly, yeah, and like the made for toy properties that I grew up with, like He-Man and Thundercats and stuff.
Yes. Which, I mean, it's all, and everything that has, all that stuff that's come before, no matter what iteration of it, has always inspired another generation one way or another. And each generation kind of had their version of heroes and everything. And for whatever reason, and maybe you can help me explain a bit more, like as the closer we get to now, it just got more bold. It just kept trying to like knock something out of the park, making the stories either grittier, darker, or whatever else. And then when you have shows like Invincible that finally like get picked up and turned into a TV show, which that was that comic itself. It's just a masterwork.
Yeah. Masterwork of violence.
Masterwork of violence. And then The Boys, which that he needs help. The author of The Boys needs a hug. He just needs a hug. Getting turned. Go ahead.
No. I'm gonna let you finish. I'm gonna let you finish, but
getting turned into a live action TV show, and those shows aren't for kids by any means, and the comics were not for kids by any means, and it just seems like once we hit the 2020s, these type of shows really found their footing and a home and an audience that will be like coming back to watch it. And I don't know why.
So I think so I think movies and comic books have always been very similar. They're they're pictorial stories. And I mean, if you break down film, each frame is basically a panel, right? Of comic book. So to me, like they're very similar. And I know reading comic books and watching TV and movies when I was a kid, like I wanted to be a filmmaker. I wanted to be in movies. I wanted to make movies. I wanted to draw comic books and tell these stories and all these things. And to me, they're like in my head, they're all the same thing. They're all the same. They're all connected. And so, but I think if you look back through the history of even like back with like Conan and fantasy and all that kind of stuff, that was even back before I think some of the superhero stuff, where you get into like the golden age of Hollywood, where you've got people. Because if you look back in like Conan stuff, I'm not sure, but I know like even like they deal in a lot of violence and nudity and stuff like that. If you look at like Conan the Barbarian, yeah. So, and if you look back in like the golden age of Hollywood with like Greta Garbo and some of those cats, like they toyed with things that we're just now starting to be okay with again. Like I want to say it was Greta Garbo wearing like a tux and tails and kissing a woman on the mouth on film, like in the 30s, you know, and it was like totally acceptable. But then with, I want to say like the beginning of World War II or whatever, and communism and the Red Scare and all that stuff, there was this giant conservative movement, and that's when movies, you know, we don't want filth on screen and all that kind of stuff, and all that was kind of wiped out. You couldn't show sexy things, and comics even went through that type of thing too, where they have the comic code and certain things are not allowed. And even though that seems like that censorship seems very detrimental to the art and what kind of stories you can tell, it also made filmmakers and writers very clever on how to show these things on screen or on page, how to convey these things in ways that went around, like some of
finding loopholes with the writing.
Yeah, not necessarily loopholes, but like some of the scenes, like some of the sexy scenes or whatever that alluded to sexy time. Like they were like, what happens in your mind when you see these things that allude to is almost more powerful than actually seeing the thing on screen or on the panel. And I know for teenagers, like that is powerful. You know, I know it was for me. You know, just certain shapes and forms leave. You know, doesn't. It gets the juices going in, pardon the term, but in the creative mind of a teenager. But so I mean, and now things are kind of coming back around to where I mean I know there's in the 80s, like, okay, so like in the 50s there was a huge conservative movement, and then the counterculture revolution came in with in the 60s into the 70s, where we get Psycho and she's nude in the shower, and there are some allusions to her nudity and things that are fuzzy out of frame without showing the actual body parts. And and even like showing her in her bra was like, and the fact that at the beginning of Psycho, like that she's having an affair, or they're sneaking around and they're friends with benefits or whatever, you know. And and so like things like that were kind of pushing the envelope, and I think it's just kind of been pushing over time. And then of course in the 80s things were kind of drawn back in with more conservative ship, and even now there's this culture war, you know, obviously between liberals and conservatives and all that type of thing. But if you talk to, like, we live in Arkansas, so like we live in the Bible Belt, like the buckle of the Bible Belt. So even if you talk to conservatives on a one-on-one basis, like, they are still very, like, I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but if you talk to them one-on-one about like their moral standing and where they stand with God and certain things in their personal life, if you talk to them one-on-one, like, they're pretty liberal, like a lot more liberal than they let on. But if you talk to them in a group, like, oh, I would never, I can't, that's a no-no, you know what I mean? Like, have you noticed that?
Yeah.
So I think just as a culture, and as we mature and modernize, that we are learning how to deal with things in more mature and smarter ways, instead of just like, no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think just for the sake of like art in general, like there will always be those people who want to push the envelope just for the sake of pushing the envelope. And in American culture, where we have a capitalist society, where some of it is a meritocracy and some of it is who can be the flashiest, most eye-catching thing, you know what I mean? And sex always sells, and violence always gets a response. So these things, I think, have kind of risen to the top in our culture, especially in comics, where you can kind of get away with the weirder stories, and they don't have to sell millions of dollars on opening day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
but then 20 years later, someone looks at it and is like, "Hey, I think we need to ban this type of thing." Because I remember, I think The Killing Joke almost got banned.
I wouldn't doubt it. Yeah. I mean, it was pretty violent, but I mean, you look at things nowadays, like you said, Invincible or The Boys.
So, do you think that?
Which I love. I think they're. I mean, I think. Okay, so we're skirting on the discussion of violence in movies and media and how it affects people and all that kind of stuff.
But let me ask a question directed more. Do you think that some of the superhero shows that are out now are pushing the envelope just to push it, or do you think the versions that we are seeing are the best versions of what we could see from that property?
I think it's a mix, to be honest with you, because I think to a certain extent there has to be that sellability, that has to be that marketability, because you've got to stick out in people's minds, and sex and violence will always check that box because of our lizard brains and who we are as people, and you know what I mean? So I think there's a mixture of that, but at the same time, we're not necessarily going to tolerate these things for no reason, just for the sake of these things. There are those things, but if you want to break into legendary status and be around for a while and be accepted into the mainstream, then you have to have quality storytelling, and you have to have something that gets at the heart of mankind, and something that is like a cautionary tale, or something that is heartwarming. And it's like, I mean, you look at Adam Sandler, and it's like back in the 90s, everybody in the 90s, you talk to somebody from the 90s, everybody, my age group, we all love Adam Sandler. Not so much these new kids, they don't. Like Adam Sandler's like, oh, he's a man-child, this and that, blah, blah, blah. But if you watch his films, there's always this thread of family or being a better person or something like that, that made it kind of rise above just the whole goofiness and silliness of it. And even Will Ferrell, who also does the whole man-child thing, and and I'm getting to Peacemaker, who is also a man-child, and that's
super man-child.
Yeah. So, but at the heart, if you watch the James Gunn stuff, especially where he came from, where just gratuitous violence, gratuitous sex, and in the trauma stuff, and but what makes his artwork, what makes his art rise above all that, is that there is always some thread of humanity in there that makes us think about who we are or what we value, or that type of thing. And I think that you have to balance those two things in order to move the narrative forward, or move the discussion forward, or make your thing stand out. Otherwise, it'll just be like, yeah, it was fun. I'll just move on to something else.
Very well said. Very well said. So, I honestly feel like that's all the bad. But I feel like that was possibly all the rough parts of any of this. But with kind of threading it back around, talking about the characters themselves and telling the stories, do you think that this constant kind of retelling of certain characters is just kind of like done with? This stemming from this weird rumor, and it's take every bit of what I'm about to say with a grain of salt the size of a mountain. That with the Ezra Miller Flash movie, Flashpoint, it is supposedly supposed to erase everything that came before, like all the Men of Steel's, Batman vs Superman, and I guess Joss Whedon's Justice League, since that's the one that came out. And the final scene of the movie is supposed to be Ezra Miller, Shazam, and Supergirl talking about forming the Justice League.
If they don't keep Henry Cavill, I'm going to be upset.
I'm going to be upset. I'm going to be first. And also,
it's like
and
furious.
I mean, it would be if they do this with the new DCEU, or whatever you want to call it. It would be a parallel to what the CW did in having Green Arrow appear, then Flash, and then other heroes to make up the Justice League, but no Batman. And even like their original 7 is just this kind of amalgamation of
the 7.
Let's not go to the boys just yet. This amalgamation of heroes that you wouldn't think would it's an odd original 7. Let's just go with that, because it ended up being Green Arrow, who's Green Arrow's daughter, Nia Queen, Barry Allen Flash, Clark Kent Superman, Supergirl, Kara Zor-El, Black Lightning, Batwoman. I'm missing somebody. I think that's it. Nope.
Doom Patrol.
Nope. I think it was just Martian Manhunter. I was missing somebody. And Martian Manhunter. But the thing with that is you don't even see them ever come together because it's like falling apart. But that's a whole different thing. So, but do you think it's good to break tradition of like what a team was originally supposed to be? Like if the Avengers originally started out with,
I mean, they technically did it with the Avengers because Wasp wasn't there.
Wasp wasn't there. Black Panther wasn't there.
Ant-Man wasn't there.
Yeah, they did, but they picked, I think, the most marketable 6. The easiest 6 to do too, because Hulk was already out there. He's been out there for the longest time. Iron Man did great, so of course it's going to have him. Captain America, I feel like, is easily recognizable, and Thor.
Yeah, you got to have Cap and Tony at the very least.
Yeah,
they're the heart of it.
Thor was pretty. Black Widow at the time was pretty, but substance came later.
Yeah. I think for the Justice League, you got to have the big 3 at least.
You got to have the Trinity. If you don't, you don't know what you're doing, because it's just that thing of having those recognizable characters. But if you're somebody who comes in and they're like, all right, you can make a Justice League movie, use whoever you want, and we'll just see how it goes. I hope they don't ever say that. But then you end up picking Blue Devil, Booster Gold, Blue Beetle, Atom, Green Lantern, hate him. And and Constantine. You end up taking those, and then you expect and then you just put Justice League in front of it and expect people to go see it. Do you think people will actually go see it?
I don't think so. I think you've got to have that recognizability. Like, okay, so this is like one of my biggest soapboxes when it comes to translating a medium into film or on the screen, or putting something on the screen. Okay, here we go. You've heard this about 1 billion times. All right. So that property warrants, there's something about that property that warrants putting it on the screen. There is a fan base, there is a story, there is something, there's an essence to that warrants putting it on the screen, right?
Yes.
You cannot gut it of that essence or of that fan base or what that fan base recognizes about that thing, and then just slap a logo on it and call it that thing and do what you want. Like, you can't make the Batman the Punisher. You can't make Superman Batman and still call him Superman. Like, I mean, so we're at the, okay, so with having said that, we are at a point of saturation in the superhero genre that with certain characters, especially Batman, Spider-Man, people that we have seen over and over and over again, that we don't want to see their origin stories again. We want to see new and different versions of them. That we can start doing what the comics did and start putting out variations of these characters that are not necessarily the same version. Like, for instance, we've seen Superman so many times that, yes, go ahead and do a Michael B. Jordan Superman and give us a different take on Superman. Like, and to be honest, like, these like the Michael B. Jordan Superman, like, people get all upset about, well, you can't make Superman black, blah, 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 whatever. Like, he's not Clark. He's not Clark. He's a different Superman. And that needs to be understood. And you know, all this. But if you can put 3 different Spider-Mans on screen and everybody loves it, we're at the point of saturation where we can start sidetracking from our mainstream heroes, but only with the ones that we haven't seen, that we've seen too much of already. You know what I mean? Like, you can't take a character that has a hardcore fan base, even if it's a cult following or whatever, especially if it's cult following, because that's a strong following, and then put their character up on screen and then gut it of its essence and say, oh, this is just a different version. Like, yeah, some of the mainstream folks are not going to not know the difference, and you might get away with it, but you're shooting yourself in the foot for the people who have been with you and stuck it out with that character and love that character, and you are cutting them off, and that's a huge detriment. Give them that character on the screen first, and then you can start playing with that character. Does that make sense? Like, that's where I stand on it. But
I mean, I feel like we'll use Multiverse of Madness because I feel like they're going to do that a lot. With like a lot of the rumors and stuff floating around that there's going to be a different Captain America, a different Iron Man. We know there's more than 2-3 Doctor Stranges. Like, it's going to be a lot of crazy things where they're going to play with this idea of the multiverse and using that and all that. And who knows, one of these like cameo characters could steal the show so much to the point they're like, all right, let's go ahead and give you a movie. Yeah.
And that's the whole point of doing. I mean, that's the whole point. Like it worked that way in the comic books. They started doing the what if stories. They started doing the variant stories and the side stories. And sometimes that character rose to the top because it was a better telling, or it struck a chord with fans, and that character, that version became the main version of that character. Like for example, like the Batman the Animated Series. In my generation, like that is the cornerstone Batman. Like that's Batman to me. Like that's Batman. There is no other version of Batman. Batman doesn't kill. There's the gothic and noir elements and detective elements that are iconic to that character. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
and you know what I mean? That's and you're really walking a line, and it's a balancing act because you've got so many different hardcore fans of different versions of that character now.
Yep. Because I mean, you could run into somebody who the Tim Burton Batman, that's their bread and butter. You could run into somebody who's freshly 18 and they know Christopher Nolan Batman. And then, there's that one guy out there who's like, Ben Affleck's the best Batman ever.
There's some hardcore Ben Affleck. Like, as far as like physicality, dude is like the Dark Knight Returns and Batman Year One. Like he fulfills that.
He grappling hooked a crate and threw it at someone, and then proceeded to beat everybody else up in the room.
That scene in that first scene where we see him in Batman versus Superman, and he is like attacking villains on different levels of the building. Like that is like one of the best Batman fight scenes that just shows his physicality and how he uses his environment. Like that was great. That almost sold me on Ben Affleck.
It almost sold me. Almost. But Batman's also one of those characters that he's been around and been portrayed by different actors since the 60s.
Yeah. When I mean, and there's always going to be that thing. Like, and we can recall when Michael Keaton was going to play Batman for Tim Burton. All the folks who grew up with Adam West were upset, and from what I understand, from what I understand, Adam West was upset that he wasn't going to play Batman or be a part of it. Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And everybody thought it was the greatest mistake to put Michael Keaton, this comedic actor who's Mr. Mom and not manly, into this role. And he freaking killed it so much that he is coming back in the Ezra Miller Flash movie and the Batgirl movie to play his Batman. Yeah. And people are going nuts.
Yeah. It was so good.
Yeah.
And I mean...
You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
But there are versions of this character throughout the movies, at least, like Ben Affleck's, that haven't, like, worked. Because you didn't like Ben Affleck completely. I didn't mind Ben Affleck.
I think, like I was not a fan of his casting. I mean, I don't have anything against Ben Affleck. He's got the physicality. He's got the Bruce Wayne down, but like I was not sold on him as Batman. But the longer time goes by, I'm coming around to it, even though he hasn't been in a whole lot. But I feel like had he been in several movies and it wasn't Whedon's version of him, then people would have come around
more
to
time to grow the character.
Yeah, exactly. And explain why he's out there killing folk. Like, I was not okay with that. But that's the Snyder. That's the Zack Snyder thing. That's not necessarily his fault.
That was Zack Snyder saying.
Yeah, dude is super cynical when it comes to...
We'll do a little bit of Watchmen, see what happens.
Yeah. He's like, you got to be kidding me. Like, Bruce Wayne's a villain. Like, he's a capitalist. He's out there. He's like, come on, bro.
But also, I mean, he wasn't the only one. Val Kilmer's Batman. Whichever one was it? Batman Forever? Whichever one Mr. Freeze was
Batman
in.
Forever. No.
No?
That was
That was one?
George Clooney's Batman in Batman.
Oh, that's right.
That Batman and Robin with Mr. Freeze and Uma Thurman. This is the Batman series that I grew up with, and I had the action figures and everything. So like, don't test me on this.
Okay.
I love at the height of his career, Jim Carrey played the Riddler in Batman Forever, and it was the first turn from the Tim Burton Batman, and it kind of Joel Schumacher originally, from what I understand, wanted to go even darker, but for whatever reason they brought in the a little bit of the Adam West kind of like bright colors and just a tinge of silliness and more comic stuff.
Very bright. Like, yeah, I remember watching it. It was like you could tell they were trying to make it like stylistically like a comic book.
Yeah.
And
Tommy Lee Jones's character, man. When I was a kid, I was like, "Oh, this is so much fun." But now that I'm older, I was like, "Dude, wow!" Like, yikes.
His Two-Face,
yeah, but man, Jim Carrey still, and I loved Val Kilmer's Batman. I thought that he did pretty good. I mean, that was like actually one of my favorites when I was that age.
I'll have to go back and watch it.
I thought it was a nice mix of noir and neon. It was a fun mix.
I feel like what you said is an oxymoron.
Well, because you've got the dark, all the black, and then you've got like just like the pinks and the greens like right behind me of neon, and I thought it was just an interesting mix.
Interesting mix. Yeah. Well, all right. It
teaches them.
Teaches them.
But Batman and Robin, no, thank you. No, thank you. He killed Alfred and everything, bro.
Yeah.
Like they were trying to wreck that ship. Like they purposely were trying to wreck that ship.
And in the same decade, we're in the 90s at the moment. We had at the edge of the 90s, we had Marvel come out with one of their most iconic movies, and in my opinion, let me say that, which is Blade.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say X-Men. My bad. Yes, Blade. Well, I was too young to watch Blade at the time, so. But yeah, Blade. Wesley Snipes' Blade was iconic.
How old was I if you were too young?
Well, Blade is rated R. There was a lot of blood and gore. I want to say there was like boobs.
It came out in 99, right? It was boobs. Definitely boobs. He was in a strip club. There was a lot of boobs.
Oh, yeah, okay.
99? Was I 5? Oh, I was 5.
Dude.
I'm trying to skate uphill.
I didn't actually watch Blade because just a little personal journey. Like I got super religious in the late 90s for like a decade or two, where I did not watch anything R-rated or listen to secular music, which is worldly music. It was all Christian music, and all that kind of stuff. So I didn't watch Blade until like way later.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, I missed out on a bunch of stuff there.
You made up for it, I think. I think. I
more than made up for it.
We also had Judge Dredd that came out in the 90s.
Yeah, which I thought was so much fun. Like I love the campy stuff. I love the camp.
I even liked the newer Judge Dredd that came out in the
with Carl Urban.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it works because there's so many different iterations of Judge Dredd. So it works. Like that could technically be the same Judge Dredd.
I wish they would just give me more, but they won't, so it's fine, whatever.
And of course, one of my favorite quotes from Judge Dredd, "I am the law," because that's my last name.
He's been waiting to do that one for a long time. But like, so, I mean, it shows that, you know, comic book movies and
lips. Oh, sorry. I was trying to look at. I was looking at myself trying to do the Stallone lips. My bad.
well, okay,
Okay.
Rocky. It shows that, you know, comic book movies for a while have always been certain directors and certain folks that like go ahead and like give them the green light to tell these stories the way they want to tell them. They sometimes succeed and they sometimes like fall really hard. Something that like fell kind of hard in the 90s as well was the Flash TV show, where it only had one season. I don't know if you remember it.
I loved that show.
Yeah. So
I loved the Flash because the Flash was like one of the comics when I first started collecting comics that I could find. I had like, I want to say it was Flash 50 or Flash 100 where they did the redesign of his suit. And the second one, it was like Resurrection. And he came out and it was all the lightning streaks and all that. I was super hype on the Flash. And that show came out and he was in the Red Velvet. Is that the one?
Yeah.
Red Velvet suit? Yeah,
Yep.
That was my Flash.
So, and it was overall, like, before Crisis on Infinite Earth, like, somebody went through on YouTube and they were just, like, putting an episode out a day. And, like, so I just kind of went through and watched some of them. And what ended up happening in Crisis on Infinite Earth, I wasn't expecting, and it made me cry. Made me cry 3 times in that show.
Oh, man.
That special. But also, side note, the trickster in that show was Mark Hamill, and once I learned that, I was like, Mark Hamill has done everything.
Yes, he has. Mark Hamill's the man.
Yeah. Shout out Mark Hamill. But these things, really for whatever reason, like the 90s especially, influenced a lot of TV and things now. Because, like I said, Crisis on Infinite Earths, it actually gave an end to the 90s Flash. Like, it actually wrapped up his story that never actually ended. And it just shows, like, comic book movies and comic books in general, those who do them are comic book fans themselves, and they will always, especially given the chance, like, give that payoff that you don't even know that you actually need. And another instance of a payoff you didn't know that you needed. Hold on, wait, I had it. Oh, it's gone, Dylan. I didn't write it down.
No.
I'll use Spider-Man. Fine, let's do Spider-Man. Was in Spider-Man with Tobey Maguire, Spider-Man meeting cured Doc Ock, and then having that conversation, and it just seemed like it was peace. It was what Peter felt like he wanted and what he needed as well, because there were still those things of he could not save his villains like he wanted to, so that always weighed on him and tortured him.
Man, yeah. Such a tragic hero. Like, I love that. Because the older Spider-Man gets, the more tragic he becomes. And there's just something beautiful about that. I mean, so much so that I think they almost kind of painted themselves into a corner, and because they've had to reboot him from being old several times.
Yeah.
They keep trying. He's like, oh no, he's too dark. Let's bring him back to high school. Chipper and Tom Holland Spider-Man.
Hopeful.
Yeah.
I think it's because he is that chipper, sarcastic, fun-loving superhero who's always just kind of jumping around and doing stuff. But he has had, throughout his tenure of existing, some of the most tragic and messed up things happen to him.
Yeah.
But
he keeps getting back up. That's that's my boy.
Pulls himself up by his bootstraps or spider web. feet. He
web
gets
straps.
up and he goes out. And whether he is about to be killed by the Sinister Six, turn to a zombie, eat Aunt May's face, or just beat up for no reason by Kingpin and then crushed.
Or have his marriage taken by Mephisto.
Have his marriage taken by Mephisto. Oh, God. The countless number of friends he had to bury.
And yeah.
Boy, howdy. Peter Parker, Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Ham, all of you guys, you, good luck. Jeez. But heroes like that, the tragic hero that always gets back up, what am I trying to get at? I know what I'm trying to get at. Superheroes in general, bottom line, are meant to not just inspire, but make you feel like you aren't the little weirdo sitting in the back of class, not talking to anybody. They're made to make you feel like you belong. So,
yeah.
Give you hope. And there was this interview with Stan Lee, and it's become like a little viral clip here recently of him saying the happiest mistake that he made with Spider-Man, that he didn't intend to do it, is that his costume covers the skin completely from head to toe. And so that even if you take the mask off, it didn't matter who was under it. It just meant like anyone could be Spider-Man. He could have been white, he could have been black, he could have been brown, he could have been purple, he could have been blue. It didn't matter. It just shows that anyone could have been Spider-Man. Yeah. Yes. But with all that.
Yeah. And I mean, if you want to get into the whole argument, or back into the whole argument of like our superhero movies or whatever, is that whole genre, cinema or whatever, it's like there is a very, very strong thread when you go back to Greek tragedy and the gods and how these are our myth. These are our myths for our American culture. This is our mythos, and there and the huge parallels. So get off my back about superheroes not being cinematic.
Oh,
they are the new gods.
Jack Kirby, shout out. And I feel like as time goes on, we're going to just see superhero movies evolve even more. Because at this point, the year that this is being recorded, 2022, superhero
February.
stuff just in
before Multiverse of Madness, and I think that's going to change the game.
It's going to change the game.
Because I think we're in a weird spot where we've seen Spider-Man No Way Home, and that changed the game. But Multiverse of Madness, I think, is going to complete
it's going to break the game.
Yeah, it's going to complete that turn.
Yeah. And then it'll just be balls to the wall. Who knows what's going to happen next? But like shows like Peacemaker, Invincible, The Boys, there are other TV shows, Superman and Lois, which that one is about movie quality as well. Shows like that are just becoming so mainstream now. Mm-hmm. Not saying that they weren't mainstream before, but it was just, kind of the same role of heroes. It was always...
If you look back, like Adam West was the biggest movie star at the time. Batman was like the first mainstream TV superhero probably. But there were instances of Spider-Man, a little TV show, and then him popping up on the Electric Company. And and then we had like the Captain America movie that nobody really saw, and then
from the 70s. Yep.
yeah, and then there was like the Punisher with Dolph Lundgren was like the first Punisher movie, my introduction to Punisher.
Yep.
And then the Thomas Jane Punisher, which a lot of people hate on that movie, but I liked that movie. I thought it balanced his humanity very well instead of just making him just like this cold-blooded killer, which he is. But I mean, there's definitely a core there of why he is the way he is. But then you've also got Hulk. You cannot do this without mentioning the Hulk television show, which was a phenomenon. I mean, for Marvel, that was their Batman. Like, it was their first big hit in television. And
Did you know there was
Thor
a Nick Fury
and all this
movie?
one. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, I forgot.
And David Hasselhoff even played Nick Fury at some point. Is that the
Yep.
one you're talking about?
That's exactly the one I'm talking about.
Yeah. I didn't know about that one at the time. I wasn't aware of that at the time, but I was all about watching these TV special Hulk movies where they would introduce Thor, and it was this kid who, like, they kind of use the same premise as Hulk, where, you know, it was one person that transformed into somebody else, and this guy had Mjolnir, had Thor's hammer. I don't even think they called it Mjolnir because it was too hard to say, and they didn't even try to make white people say hard names back then. So he would like call down lightning and become Thor, and yeah.
Had the
was
brown.
like, for me, it was like
Yep.
seeing those characters in live action was just such a treat and such a, like, I was like beside myself in excitement as a child to see this, you know.
It's like Christmas for your eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And now we're at this point of saturation where we, you know, it's a thing, and we're like, I mean, we do the MCU edition where it's like every week we've got something new and fun and cool to talk about and just geek out about. And it's, for me, that's just revisiting being a kid and seeing these characters translate onto screen. And it's wonderful and it's beautiful and I love it.
Dropping stuff. Okay.
Like it's hot.
And yeah, it's the fact that they've turned these characters from like your both of our childhoods, from our childhoods, and like made it to where they're just household names. It's astonishing. It's very cool. It's very neat. But you have to, like, there's always this just thought in the back of my mind of like, when's the train gonna end, and when is it all just kind of gonna fall off?
Yeah. I think Marvel and other ones are coming around to it too, but they're like, there's not necessarily like a superhero genre. I mean, there is, but there isn't, because the way Marvel's done is like each hero has their own genre type. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like when you've got Cap in like political thriller and spy movies, and then you've got Thor that's into like the magic and fantasy. Yeah. Well, and then Ant-Man is a heist movie. You know, I mean, it's like,
yeah,
you got all these different things, and of course, Spider-Man is John Hughes-esque. You know, teenage films. Yeah. But I think what makes it smart, of course, we're getting into horror and stuff like that with Doctor Strange and Moon Knight and Blade and all that coming. But I think what gives it staying power is the same reason that comics became what they are today, and that's the genius of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko and these other cats who decided that we're going to make them relevant and talk about social issues, where you've got them addressing mental health. You've got them addressing racism, you know, where you've got Black Panther showing up and whooping the KKK's ass, and that,
KKK,
like,
honey?
that that touches us, and that moves us in, and they can talk about smart things in a way that we can deal with. It's like, like they say, if you can laugh at it, you can live with it. And that's like kind of the beauty of, like, if you listen to like Dave, no matter what you think of Dave Chappelle, but he talks about a lot how how it's an honorable profession, the jester, where it's talking about issues and just standing on stage and moving with society and digging things up and having a conversation and joking about it and kind of moving us forward like that. And I think comic books kind of do the same thing, where they take something that is hard and difficult and is it's sad, or just really, really dark, and they can take it and make this goofy character in tights deal with this thing, and we can kind of like put ourselves in their shoes and feel like we can go on because we see how that they deal with it, or that type of thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love that about it.
Which that's all. Touching on that, what that's all Superman and Lois is. It's Superman doing the most human thing that he can do with children, and that's trying to raise his kids and be a good father while still, getting them to football practice on time and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. And you would think this person who is literally fought an actual god in space would have to deal with things like that. But that's his struggle. That's his greatest battle, no matter who he's fighting, is trying to not just maintain his humanity, but also thrive within it. Thrive. Yeah.
And that's where Superman excels, and Spider-Man and all these other ones, is that in the mundane, the everyday life of dealing with things that we have to deal with, and they're, if they're so powerful and they still have to deal with stuff like that, then maybe we're not so odd, or maybe maybe we can deal with it, and like my whole thing with Broken Pictures, like that is the thing, is finding beauty in brokenness, and it's okay to be human and just be normal and be broken or whatever, and you know what I mean? You're not you don't have to be some fantastical best version of yourself all the time, every day. You can just be yourself,
Yep. Last thing. It's kind of about Peacemaker, just in general. Peacemaker has done this very odd thing that I don't think I've seen actually happen before. He is so low to the ground of stuff happening. Not saying the Netflix shows like Daredevil and all that weren't. But this man lives in a trailer park. His dad is the leader of a certain sect of the KKK. His dad is a racist supervillain. And he is dealing with a literal earth-destroying problem that no one can know about because they don't know who is and who isn't a part of it. Mm-hmm. And the story, this show is the most surprising story. I didn't expect this to happen. And I'm here for every bit of it. But some of it is so sunk into reality, because in all honesty, Peacemaker is just a regular dude who's just in super good shape, who can shoot well.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious if and this is, now it's turning to a DC question. Do you think that should be DC's, their GOAT going forward? The GOAT they should ride.
Peacemaker, or that thread within Peacemaker.
That thread within Peacemaker.
I
like
think.
Go ahead. Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say that the kind of like the same level that Peacemaker's at, but dealing with the same type of shit.
Yeah. I think all stories, like I think DC, Warner Brothers, not necessarily DC because their animated stuff and their comic books are still really good, but their movies,
It's a top tier.
So their movies, I mean, I think that's a Warner Brothers thing. I think that's a committee thing where they're like, this is a studio issue that's just happening in the world. It's been happening where if studios are afraid to take risks, and because if they lose money, then stockholders and heads of studios will lose their job, and you know, like if you're a head of a studio and you've been there like 3 to 5 years, you're considered successful. Like it's such a crazy job that if you have one miss, like you're done. Like, and so they're so gun shy. And Warner Brothers is probably one of the worst as far as like with their dealings with DC, where they're so trying to capitalize on what Marvel has done in their own way, but they get to where they trust somebody who has a vision like Zack Snyder or now James Gunn, and they let them do their thing, but then they're so insecure because if there's a hint of people not liking it or whatever, then they'll pull it like they did with Zack Snyder. And then you got Whedon and all this other stuff, and it just gets crazy. So that's a whole nother discussion of what's going on in the studio system and just the movies and all that kind of stuff. But I think that is where stories excel in making things, in coding them, like, you know, like with the story that's going on in Peacemaker, where you said, you know, he can't, without giving too much away, like he's Black Ops and there's things that going on that he can't just tell people, and that's how you feel as a person when you're going through something. You feel isolated, and he's going through that hard, and people around him he thinks he can trust, but he can't, and they're lying to him, and then some of them are setting him up for failure, and he's going through all this, and then he's got like people that adore him that he just is blind to how, and he treats them wrong, you know. It's like, you know, and so it's like, yeah, that's how we feel. It's like we're so isolated. We feel so isolated in what we're going through that we can't talk to other people, or that we're going through it alone, when really we're not. And we are actually surrounded by a team of people, and people who love us and care about us, who are our support system, but our mind tricks us and all these different things. So I think when you tell a story and you code it in like that, where it's something that we pick up on, not necessarily like put our finger on, but it's something that we get on a subconscious level, then that's where stories excel, and we can relate to them. And I think that is where DC is kind of, the DCEU is kind of losing it, where their heroes are becoming there's not that humanity there. And one of the things that makes Man of Steel, despite its issues, one of the things that makes Man of Steel such a great movie, and Shazam as well, is because they are dealing with very human things. And that is also like another soapbox of mine with Superman, where people say, oh, he's so unrelatable, he's untouchable. Outside of his physicality, he's completely vulnerable. I mean, he's an orphan, he's an alien, he doesn't. He's alone. All these things that we deal with, like on a psychological level, they got into that in Man of Steel, where he isolated himself and he went off on his own, and like that's where Superman shines, is when you deal with him as a person and not just someone who can't bleed, or whatever. Unless you're Batman, then he can bleed. But do you bleed? That was a horrible. I'm gonna blame that on my little throat issue. That was a horrible voice. Don't hold that against me. But anyway. But yeah, I think DC or WB, if they take a step back and they let these characters be human, and like in a way that's not like, oh, our moms share the same name, like on a superficial level, then like you have to have people in there like James Gunn who can take a property, and it's really all you need. You've got to infuse it with a sense of family, a sense of things that are tangible to the everyday man.
Or if they want to take it the opposite direction and just have it just be dark stuff the whole time and not know it's dark stuff until the end, they could take it the same route that the Joker took it, where you ended up sympathizing for this guy that you know he's going to end up becoming, but they addressed a lot of issues that people nowadays definitely have, and then lo and behold,
it's social commentary.
Yeah,
I mean that takes it back to why comics succeeded. I think you've got to keep those same ideals and just update them. I think it really is that simple. That people are just missing the forest for the trees. You know what I mean? It's just overcomplicated because it's committee and like, oh, we've got to check these boxes, or we've got to. This is popular right now. Oh, wait. I know you're almost done with the movie, but we've got to put this in there. And Sony kind of has done that with Spider-Man in the past too. So they stick their foot in their mouth or shoot themselves in the foot because they don't trust the process. You know what I mean? So
we'll see, Madam Web. All right.
Bruh. Yeah, we didn't even do the MCU news thing, but this is a whole different animal. Dude. Yeah. We'll see.
We'll see. I don't have anything else.
I think So I think Sony, the only reason they succeeded lately is because of their partnerships with Marvel. Even though I love the Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. I'm not bandwagoning here. I was a fan of the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man. Like, I didn't care for his Green Goblin. It got weird, but I was excited for where they were going with it. And that Gwen Stacy thread in the second movie, like for me, that was beautiful. Like that was such a gut punch. I loved that. Yeah. And I liked him. I still like him, and everybody likes him now. But anyways. Yeah, so I mean, I think they did well with that, but there's so many other missteps in Spider-Man 3, and
it's that whole thing of putting the cart before the horse, and a lot of those movies, and it's sad to see because like years later you can see the potential in the movie, and then like right when the movie comes out, there's all it's the hype around it and the limelight of the movie, and it's like it's the thing that you really want to see. It's really great, but then once you step back and you look at it, and then you see a weird giant old plot hole that's like, dang, Endgame, did y'all actually like read the script?
I'm saying. Yeah, I mean this. I'm probably going to get in trouble here, but this Spider-Man 3 to me was a lot. Like, it had some good stuff in it for sure, but man, it was like, I think it only survives on fan service, just like Endgame. You know what I mean? And people wanting to see the story close.
And the story having to close before they, I guess, jump whatever ship they're about to jump.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, okay.
Yeah, but you got to trust the process, and you can't get ahead of yourself. And movies are such a fickle thing because you don't know what, because they take years. They're years in the making, and you don't know how things are going to be or where society's going to be, the public, what their thoughts. Yeah, because especially nowadays, when things change so drastically, so fast. I mean, if you look back 5 years ago, before the Me Too movement, before the Black Lives Matter movement, there was a lot that was acceptable before that now just will not fly and is not okay. Yeah, it shouldn't have been okay before, but I guess for whatever reason we didn't know better or whatever. Call it what you want, but
yeah.
Things have changed drastically, and if you're making a movie, especially one that is trying to be a cultural phenomenon, man, it's so easy to not trust the process and get out ahead of yourself and want to swap streams in the middle.
Yeah.
Because this thing we were going is this direction we're going. It's not popular anymore. Instead of creating culture, they're following culture, and I think that's, you got to be careful with that.
Solid
Not to
response.
mention the week, and this has happened so many times before. The week before your movie comes out, the very cultural thing that you want to talk about suddenly becomes a no-no, or people don't care about anymore, and then your movie just. But that's all part of trust in the process, and because you can have a second life on video on demand or whatever.
Yeah.
Because nowadays they don't go away; they sit around forever, and people can watch them time and time again. Whereas, like when I was a kid, if you missed it, you missed it. You know what I mean? Like I didn't know that The Flash was canceled. I just couldn't find it anymore. I was like, where did it go? I guess we just don't get that anymore.
Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts?
I don't think so. I'm excited. I mean, it's a great time to be alive for nerds and comic book fans, and I think that what's awesome about it is even people who weren't into comics are finding something that they like in it, and I think that is the way to beat oversaturation and comic book fatigue is to get the different variations and topics and things like that to where everybody can find something they like, and they don't have to watch every single movie to be caught up on it. They can watch this one and they're cool with that. And even though that it is the big thing right now and it's everywhere all the time, like I don't think. Yes, yes, to a certain degree, it makes studios not want to put money or take risks with other things because they want to put it in this sure thing. But I think but it is also very important to have those unique voices and those unique genres and those new things coming out, and you just got to keep plugging away, and your time will come, and it might not be your moment right now, but it'll come around. And if you have something special and unique that is good, then it'll come out. Regardless. Yeah. Especially nowadays where people are always looking for something new and unique, and looking for something to latch onto or find identity with or whatever, and which is why you've got shows like The Boys and stuff like that that are taking even the superhero genre and just turning it on its ear and kind of mocking it and accepting it all at the same time.
Yeah. Boy, howdy. The Boys is just...
so good.
it's so good. And I'm like, good God, this is exactly how it would be if superheroes were here. Oh, boy. We'd find out that it's a big corporation. Oh, my God. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very cynical view on it, but
it is. But it's, you know, like I said, it's a fun show, and all these shows and movies are made to, well, regardless if they talk about certain social issues, social commentary, or if they're trying to make a certain point within themselves, whatever it may be, they're all entertaining and made for their fans. No matter, I'll get in trouble for this one, no matter what the actors, directors, all of that they may say, at the end of the day, if you're a comic book fan, you're gonna find something you enjoy in a movie, no matter how weird, crazy, bad, stupid, whatever you want to call it, slightly racist it is. You'll find something to enjoy in all of these movies and TV shows.
Yeah.
As we have since the 50s.
Yeah. And they're like, I would almost rather, I'm kind of on the same page with Ryan Johnson on this, even though you know how I feel about like, I would almost rather make something for a niche, or however you say it, a niche, and it become a cult classic than it just be a mainstream thing and I make all kinds of money. I mean, granted, I'm not saying I don't want money, but or to be loved by the entire world, that would be amazing. But I think certain things, when they become cult classic, I think that they have a stronger life and they live longer because it is passed down to like I mean, like I shared the Labyrinth with my kids, you know, and of course the Labyrinth and things like that and Dark Crystal, you know, become more mainstream now. But when I was a kid, those were kind of like those little dark, quirky Jim Henson things that maybe those were kind of weird, you know what I mean? And, you know, and I think that they have, I think there's a stronger case for them, and that, I don't know, I like those more, and they have a stronger base.
Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I mean, it was a little short comic series that I didn't read until after I watched the movie. But I loved the movie so much, and I found out where it actually came from. And one day my children will watch it. I have the Scott Pilgrim video game on my Switch. It is, yeah, cult classic.
You know, Netflix is making an animated version, right? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Dylan. I didn't know that.
But I love finding like beautiful things like in the corner, and that's kind of like unloved, and it's beautiful, and you just dust it off and you show it to somebody, and it just like, and then everybody starts appreciating it. Like it's like that. That's to me, like, those are cult classics, like the Trauma stuff and stuff like that. That, you know, where now it's like everybody kind of loves that stuff now, but back when I was a kid, it's like, what the hell is this?
Just calm down, you'll enjoy it. So, but yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I have nothing else.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, finding relationships and making friends based on this type of stuff, and you know, like for example, like I have a film friend that is I think Little Rock, Conway, and super into Trauma stuff, and I've like kind of followed him, and he does like quirky little films and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that dude, that's super cool what he's doing. And so like that, I would love to make that type of stuff or work with him and stuff like that. So, or like when I saw you at the museum where we were both working and you had like Batman and Superman rings and stuff like that and dragon rings. And I was like, that dude, like that's my kind of guy. It's like, I want to be friends with that guy, you know, because I think, you know, it's like stuff like that, you know?
Yes. Comics until the end of time will always bring people together and probably tear some folks apart.
Mm-hmm.
But even still, they were the stories that have influenced and created a culture that is wonderful, sometimes toxic, but even still, it is a culture we love to be a part of.
For sure.
Yes.
Yes. Well said, sir. Well said. All right. So, is that all you got?
That is all I got.
All right. So, thank you for joining us. We hope that you will join us live every Thursday, about 9:30-ish. Yeah. And on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, and maybe even TikTok going forward. We'll see. Scared of TikTok, but scared of the people on TikTok. But anyways, so please like, subscribe, and hit that little bell icon so that you know when we drop new videos, when we go live. Wow, that was a face. And don't forget to check out the website at www.broken.picturesno.com. And hopefully I will update the website here soon, especially being snowed in. But anyways, yes, I am Dylan.
I'm Quinn. Stuffy Nose.
Stuffy Nose Quinn. And we'll see you next time. Peace.
Bye.